بترحيب بالخبراء الاثنين الذين يجلسون معي هنا، وسوف نتحدث حول موضوع مهم ومثير للغاية، وهو موضوع بالتأكيد سيقوم به كل من شريف وشيرين، وربما يقدمون أنفسهم بأنفسهم، وهذا سيكون هو الأفضل. شيرين تفضلي. أنا شيرين، وشيرين لدي دار نشر تتعلق بأدب الأطفال، وأنا أيضا حصلت على الدكتوراه في موضوع نشر أدب الأطفال بشكل خاص.
Publishing techniques in the Arab world, and I'll tell you the results during the discussion. So I publish since 1998, and I teach in the university children's literature and social work.
I'm Sherif Bakr, Arabi Publishing and Distributing. We're a 47-year-old publishing house. I've been working in publishing now for 25 years. Just last week, we received a huge award for translation as an entity or as an institution for translation. I worked with the Publishers Association. I was the General Secretary of the Egyptian Publishers Association. Also, I'm in the IPA, in the Freedom to Publish Committee, among other things I've done, but mainly we publish, and we publish a lot of translation, almost 300 titles from 60 countries, from 13 languages up to now.
So we have an extremely international group here, but I think that's a good place to start, because one of the misconceptions about the Arab world is that it's the Arab world as a single entity, and maybe you guys can talk a little bit about why that's not the case, maybe starting with your comparing Egypt and Lebanon, or if you see other countries that are have some special characteristics that you want to describe, because Arabic isn't a single language, it's not a single region, and the publishing markets there are quite different, more like it's like Europe than anything else.
I would start on this.
Okay.
Well, it's a single language. It's understood all over, but it's not the same. I would always say it's more like Spanish, because Spanish is the same, but yet in Latin America, every country has its own perspective or its own look at the language, and even the genres, everything. You can, if you want to divide or arrange, there is Egypt as a region, there is Lebanon and Levant, as you say, and there is the Gulf, and there is North Africa, which is Algeria. This is more French influenced, we're more English. Lebanon, I would say English and French also. The Gulf has their own character. But when we produce a book, we have to think of all of this. So for instance, for translation, when you translate, if I translate in an Arabic Egyptian dialect, I will lose the Gulf, for instance, they don't like, and people in the North Africa might not understand even some words of Egypt. The same goes if a book comes from Lebanon. I mean, now with the media, things are easier, but still people want to. So there is kind of a classical Arabic that you can translate to where it works everywhere, and that's what we try to do, so not to lose some markets. But for instance, if it's a comedy book or it's something that has a rom-com or something, and there are jokes, so jokes has always to have a dialect, always have to, and that's always a challenge that we face with every book. And I think with children books, it's even harder.
So I think it's very important when we hear what he says, because now I agree with what he's saying, for now, is the fact that as Arabs, we have to reach Arabs in almost each and every market, because we do want to sell this small amount of books to all the Arab world. So it's not like if I publish a book in Arabic, I will be satisfied if I sell it only in Lebanon, or it's not enough. So we publish 3,000, and then it's a struggle to sell them in the Arab world and to the Arabs in Europe and to the Arabs in the US. So there is a big challenge. This is where we go next, about why are we going all around? Why do you want everybody? Because the market, there are 300 million people who speak Arabic, but not all of them read as much. So we need to reach them, and we need to sell these 3,000 books to everybody to be able to cover the cost of the books.
I mean, it sounds like that's a pretty high bar, because reaching so many people and across such a wide region is not an easy thing. I mean, what do you do to the distribution issues in the Arab world are known? So what do you do about this? How do you reach them?
So this is where we come next. Everybody says distribution is a big problem in the Arab world, and it's part of the obstacles that we face when we publish. I was thinking about it, and I was like, yes, it's a problem. But why is it a problem? Is it because there isn't many markets for it? So if you think about it, a lot of people have smartphones now. A lot of people can afford smartphones. And this is why in every corner you find a shop who sells accessories or smartphones. But isn't there, if there was more demand on books, more people would want to sell books? You say that it's a challenge and it's expensive to send books everywhere. But for example, in Lebanon, we have those kind of shippers who give us a lot of good offers for book fairs. So we ship all together in containers to the book fairs where we sell our customers. So why don't we look at this in a different perspective? So is it distribution, or is it what people are looking for, and how they're looking at it? This is why we sell in book fairs, because people in the Arab world, I believe, want the contact with each other. They want to know you. They want to talk to you about the book. What do you think of this book? Is it nice? Why do you think I should buy it? So there's that kind of relationship you build with the people to buy a book. How many books are buying books online? So if you talk with Neil Al-Furat, who were selling books online. So if there was a distribution problem, then people would buy online and then they pay and they receive the book. But it is still a challenge for them. There was another online Jamalon, they closed. So if business was booming and it was only distribution, they would have done well. What do you think, Sherif?
I beg to differ somehow. It says there is a problem with distribution, of course, because, for instance, for us, we're 100 million in Egypt. Egypt is not so big, not so small, but it's very difficult to send a book from Cairo to Aswan or to Alexandria even. It takes longer, you're not sure, the postal system is not reliable, and people don't trust to put their credit cards in, or they ask on delivery, they don't have good address. There's a whole problem with this within Egypt. Imagine if someone in the Gulf wants the book. That's another way, and there's sometimes you have to go through censorship in some countries. Sometimes the freight is far more than the price of the book. Even Amazon now, which opened in Egypt for almost a year and a half now, they can't solve the problem. They are having huge problem with books. Of course, the whole system does not exist, and we're building like the metadata. People don't use it, don't have it, so they don't have metadata. When they have the metadata, there is a lot of missing fields or missing info for the reader. The reader doesn't get the book, can't search for it. You know, it's a big thing. Maybe electronically, this helps. We tried last summer with Abjad, the app, also to try to give digital-only books. We wanted to see, because for me as a publisher, we can talk like this forever, but you have to go and see what's real market. So I wanted to see if what's the size of the digital world. Who are these people? Are they the people who read books and now they read digital, or they converted, or they are a new market at all? That was really an important question we're still trying to answer with the reports and everything, but it will be a changing point for me if I know really you can have then some audio, some digital, some physical, even print on demand now is a hot topic in the Gulf, and it might solve some problems of this. Instead of sending the book, you just give an order at a printer there and it prints. So I think with these conditions that we're in, we have to really find different solutions. We can't go the same way that we're doing. It won't work. The same way would give the same results.
But this is like in Egypt. For example, definitely, I think in other parts, especially the Gulf, the postal is something you can trust, for example, if people are getting used to the habit of ordering online. So I'm not sure this is like, I'm not the expert in ordering online and what happened, but you find that people really don't, it's not a big habit that we have to order things online. We still like to do things. So this is where I'll get you to another point, and now you'll tell me it's the traditional point, is the fact that if we had more readers, we would sell better. And so I'll ask the question why we don't have a lot of readers. other than the fact that we like to speak and we like to meet people. If we're in a bus, if we're waiting for a doctor's appointment, we meet everybody. We know how everybody's sick, what's happening with them. So it's not like we don't like to keep things to ourselves. We just like to talk and meet people and be friendly and ask a very private question, Hannah knows. So it's just us. So maybe this is one fact. And just the fact, I was thinking about it, and we did research with Zayed University. Because, you know, there's development now with publishing and picture books, and a lot of people are publishing books. But you can see that we did research about the award-winning publishing book. And I feel that a lot of the times that the children's books that are published for children are more liked by the adults than the books. So they're like very formal, the language is hard. So isn't it part of the problem that really children are not really liking to read because the material we're giving them is not what they like, it's what their parents like. So this is where we think about consumer and the customer and who's buying the books for who, and how are we developing reading for children and for them to grow to be adults who like to read.
So you think that the distribution situation, we'll say, is more because of a lack of, or there needs to be more demand from consumers, and there needs to be a better reading culture where among your customers.
It's a circle. I think if there's more demand, then people will find a way to buy more books. Okay. But it's not same in all the Arab. It's not the same. Every country is different.
Right, which makes it complicated, which is, I mean, especially for a single language region.
When I was the General Secretary of the Egyptian Publishers Association, we hired a company, an advertising company, to do focus groups for non-readers. The idea I had is, as she said, also not to only focus on people who read already. Let's make it a bigger cake. So because we have the potential. So we got young people, university, 3 levels, males, females, and we did a whole thing. It was very difficult. They wouldn't read out of anything. And the reason is because of school. The word book comes to you with school book. So it's like a horror thing when you talk to them. So it's not nice. It wasn't ever nice. Amazingly, there was only one book for 5th grade that every group had someone that said that this is the book I only remember and I only like and everything. And
what book is that? Since we're in a room full of publishers,
it was an Egyptian book called in the Deep Sea, And amazingly, 2 weeks ago, the government decided to stop this book and change it. So the only book that people remembered, now they decided to change it. And I was really amazed. I even remember telling to a guy that, okay, you will stuck in a room with a book on the floor. That's it. Nothing in the room. He said, I won't read.
I was also really, I wanted to talk about this. It's the way we teach our curriculum, how we work with children. In most of the Arab world, I can't say everybody, the curriculum is too condensed. There's a lot to do. While in other parts of the world, for instance, in Finland, where children have a lot of time to play and they have the beautiful classroom library and they have access to books. So these are methods I teach, how to use a classroom library. Children can read, they can borrow, it's shared reading. But when you talk to teachers, they say, I have a lot of curriculum. I can't do that. We have so much to do. And then when it's something to read, then it's like punishment or an assignment, and they have to do all the summary of the book, and then reading would become associated with it's like a punishment. It's not something they enjoy. They sit down, they discuss it, they talk about it. So I think once we look at publishing, we have to go back to working with parents, trying to promote reading at home, like Book Start in the UK, so how to read for babies. And then next step, working on our schools with our teachers, training, making the curriculum less, using books, because you can teach qawaid like phonics and Arabic and sentence structure, but if they read a lot, they will get it, and in a much better way. So what are we doing? Are we really just putting a lot of information into their heads, or are we just giving them the time to enjoy and discover and become those kind of learners?
So it's also then a policy issue from an education point of view. I mean, how are the curriculums put together? Who makes those decisions? Is it the top level of the government? Is it regional? Like, how does it work in your 2 countries?
I think it's always top level. They decide the whole, except if you have, like in Egypt, some international schools. They have different curriculum, depends on French, American, British. But other than that, the majority is the national system where they decide and they keep changing, as you say, the curriculum, saying it's better. Sometimes even they invited publishers to help in this, but also the results, it's the same mentality. So the result will always end.
They always think that if you make books more complicated and use those big words, it's fancier. You know, why should we? Like my son, he's in grade 4, he's 9. And then in the Arabic textbook he has, they use so many hard words like haja'a. I don't know if anybody, I don't know what this word means. He slept. It can be nama. It can be something very easy. So why should we do that? And why should we in our literature copy other people? It's, you know what I mean? It's either translating things that become harder when you translate, or just doing a lot of sophisticated material that kids will not enjoy. What are we giving children? Let's go for funny. Let's go for reading for fun. Let's go for simple books. Then they would love books, and then we will use more books, and then we will sell more, and we live happily ever after.
Done. Shereen, do you translate books from Arabic, or do you publish original content from Arabic only?
I used to translate in the beginning. Now it's less and less because people want original material. They want topics that our children in the Arab world are experiencing, you know, the way our culture is, the way we do things. So translation is not a big of a demand when it comes to picture books. But when it comes to information books or other genres, people like translation. And I think Sherif is the expert in translation here.
Thank you. No, for us, because we don't do children, I found the gap in the market when I started translation project 12 years ago. We only translate from English, American, British, Nobel winners, nothing from different countries. That's why we have a big map in our office where we put the pin whenever we find a country. And now we have 60 plus countries. And we try to discover this gap in the market. And now lots of publishers are following and doing more books in this genre, because I discovered there are gyms in different cultures and different people. And this becomes our trait. But also who reads this? It's more a little bit sophisticated people. And when I started also working on translation, the biggest problem was people saying that we buy translated books. They are very expensive, more expensive than Arabic ones. We read 4 or 5 pages and then we close it because it's too difficult. The translation process itself, there was no editorial. You just take from the translator, if you do some proofreading, and then you publish. The language has to be easy. The concept of enjoying the reading. I always, when we do like workshops with our translators to train them how to, and I always say, imagine there's a person 18 years old trying to go to sleep and reading this book. Will this sentence like help him, or will this be too difficult? And when you put this in the mind of the translator while he's working, then it becomes enjoyable and people come and thank us for that. We have this board in the book fair where the people put like pins or post-its for us, and they say like, I never thought I will read a book from Iceland, for instance. And you discover all these stereotypes that we have towards others and the others have towards us are breaking because, well, people in Norway are more or less like in Egypt, except with a bit of snow than desert. More or less. You have to read.
So it sounds like both of you are in agreement here, really, that the building a reading culture is the #1 priority to solving some of the complexities in these markets, where it creates more demand and more incentive to solve some of the challenges that you see. Is that right? I don't want to make you guys agree on something that you
I mean, if you come to Cairo Book Fair, for instance, you would find there are 2 million visitors coming to the book fair. So these are, I mean, and this is only Cairo, and this is the book fair moved to outside the city a little bit, so it's not easy to go there and everything. So I think there is a potential because, as we always say, 300 or 400 million, 1% is a 3 to 4 million. That's a big number in Europe. So we have a potential to grow. We have the potential. We're the coming thing after China, of course, but we're the next.
Norway and China.
We're the next big thing, hopefully. But I mean, it takes time, as we say, to build the whole readership, to build the whole logistics of the market. But I see that now more and more, lots of things are being solved digitally because of even the pandemic was somehow useful in this thing that people have to find ways to even order stuff. In Egypt, you can order anything at any time, even books, but people don't. I mean, people were suffering in Europe because bookstores closed or they couldn't. It wasn't the problem in the Arab world. It was the books are there, bookstores are open, but people are not ordering. That was the main problem. People were Netflixing at that time.
So see, you were saying it's the postage. So it's more than the postage problem.
I'm agreeing to this, but also the problem with the postage is that those who want can't really get it. So you have to adjust this and then grow also.
It's good to talk a bit about what's happening. What's happening in Egypt now is beautiful because if you go to the book fair, they're all those kind of influencers or parents who have those kind of networks, and Zaghlul, for example, it is on Facebook. So all these parents, and then somebody recommends a book, and then everybody would come to the book fair. They want this book, and sometimes you don't think that you have enough copies of the books. So it's beautiful. Social media is really playing a big role. Parents read, they love a book, they read it, they summarize it, they talk about it, and then people will just come to book fairs and then order them, and things are changing now. So if you have a title that really parents like, then everybody would be like, they're recommending it, and then there would be more, people would look more at it, and it will increase the sales, definitely.
I wrote an article lately based on the conference we had in Abu Dhabi. And there was someone from TikTok talking about the book talk and everything. And I was like amazed with the numbers, even the Arabic ones. And then I did a bit of research and I discovered not on influencers. Influencers do really, and it helped us many titles, but it also, the maker of the market now is the artificial intelligence, really. They decide what you will see when you open your Facebook or your TikTok or whatever.
Oh, you pay $5 and do that.
Even the $5 doesn't always work because you pay $5 and then you have to pay 10 and 50 and 100. That's the algorithm keep changing in order to makes you spend more to get almost the same result or not. But what grows generically always works better. And the way it does, it's like, I don't know how the artificial intelligence, because me personally, what comes to me is really strange. If we talk now about something, you will find the phone is listening, and
this is very painful.
They are going into when you think about something, even without verbally saying they know. But I mean, so I think that the future is coming for the artificial intelligence. It's all helping us in this sense that there will be more people using these hashtags, using these ways, and even they get paid now if you want to get. I mean, as everywhere, and it works. It works.
Yeah, but really mothers have a big influence when it comes to children's books. It's those mothers who read a book and then they post it, and then everybody's like, yeah, this is somebody who read it to the child, and then everybody's coming back to us. And then they ask us for discounts for the people who follow their page. So it's becoming like a new business channel, the way of doing things. So it's changing. Marketing is changing. So this happened like years ago with the foreign markets, when they used to, for example, send a stroller to the mother and then she recommends it in the US or in England, and then more people will order it. But now it's becoming recent in the Arab world with books.
And it's also quite organic. I mean, it's nice when an actual fan posts something online. You don't have to convince anybody to do it. Usually on TikTok, for me, it's like animals talking and stuff. I'm not sure what that says about me, but let's shift to thinking about the other direction, international cooperation in the Arab world, and maybe promoting Arabic to the rest of the world. Let's start with just a basic question. Do you sell foreign rights, and how many? Or can you give us an idea of what kinds of titles from your catalog are sold in translation?
Okay. Well, we don't publish much of Arabic literature. We are focused on international. We have 2 authors, and one of them we already sold to 4 or 5 countries, which was only our work. But I'm very much, since I came here in 2008 first time, been always asked about, oh, do you know, can you really recommend an Arabic book? What's the author you would say, and everything. I thought of doing an agency. I did one, but it totally failed because it needs dedication, it needs time, and I was doing it totally side. But then, during the pandemic, 2020, I did a project with UNIC based called Arab Voices. The idea is to choose. We had 32 books that can travel. We think that they can travel. They can work outside, fiction, non-fiction, short stories, and 1 comic book.
Is this online? Can people find this?
We the next part would have been a website, but we had it like a PD, and we launched it actually during Frankfurt in 2020 with the Arab World section in the digital form, and it had very good feedback. The way we did it in the quite professional way, though I don't do this. I'm not a publisher of this, but I wanted this because I think that translation should be a 2-way thing. We should also, part of breaking the stereotype, which we try to do, translating to Arabic, maybe others should read. And since then, lots of the titles are translated and won awards, but it has to be done professionally. It has to be done through an unbiased selection of titles, and the idea we thought is, what book would you go and Hugendubel here and you would find it on the shelf? Not that we think that this is a great Arabic author that should be, no, what people would read. We want accessibility, so we want people to read about this. I don't know about children books.
Yeah, with children's books, it's a bit different. We've been successful with around 30 titles translated to other languages, but it's hard because, come to think about it, if we're talking about publishing in general, having a stand in a book fair or working, having somebody in rights is an extra expense for us. And we've been really into a lot of challenges, and I don't think we stepped into this now because it takes a lot of time and a lot of budget to come and have a stand in the book fair and then in Frankfurt or in any other international book fair. And again, I think other languages would agree that people translate the books from languages that are easy to read. So this is why you find a lot of books translated from English or the dominant languages that everybody can read. So I think it's
but I think also there are 2 missing parts in this. One is the role of an agent. There are almost none or very, very few upcoming and some already established Arabic agents, because would be their job to promote Arabic literature. And also a granting system. You have to have many, or at least every country, book fairs, Arab book fairs, some of them give a grant for this, but you have to attend both the book fair. There are some conditions that you can't meet always, but it's a good start, and it helped many titles to do. It helped us also to translate through this. But there should be a granting system, should be a scouting, should be an agent. That would, I think, make it more professional. And when this happens, when it's profitable enough. So I think now there are few authors in Egypt that can be profitable. So now they have kind of an agency that talks to instead of them. So I think the more lucrative it is. It happened with football here in Egypt like this. When in the past it was like publishing now, but when there are footballers that, they are very expensive, and now agents came and advertising and everything starts.
Yeah, and I think the UAE has helped a lot in this. Like the Sharjah has a grant, and the Abu Dhabi Book Fair has a grant. So they have the conference, you come and meet people, and then they support you for selling rights.
I remember
it's very positive.
My first 4 books was with Abu Dhabi Book Fair. They was the one that helped me to take the risk, because I knew nothing about translation at that time, and just to be thrown in this without any knowledge. There was like a supporting system, so you feel you're not taking that much of a risk, and then you build. So the 300 started with 4 titles with Abu Dhabi.
Is international promotion for your titles a priority, or are you looking at your own markets and building your consumers? I mean, what's the ratio of international, external to your own?
I'm Lebanese. Are you really serious? I don't know if you know, in Lebanon, the dollar was 1,500, and yesterday it was 41,000. So the economical crisis is nothing
Scary.
that anybody has ever seen in any part of the world. So definitely the market that was 50% for us is like 2% or 3% for us now. So locally, we're doing nothing now. It's very hard to sell, and if you sell, you have to sell them in the cost price because people can't really pay for it. So what we do, we have to go internationally, and honestly, the Gulf is our best market because people can afford books. They have so many policies, and they buy books for their schools and the government. So they are our good market for the time being.
Yeah, that sounds like not an easy situation, but also a good start for building a larger base of customers.
Not to mention the relationship between Lebanon and the Saudi Arabia conflict, and then we stopped from sending our books to a lot of market. So it's always a challenge for us. I'm like, when is it going to stop? I've been born in war, and then it's always something else happening. So yeah, it's always a challenge for us.
It's always going to be something. I'm sure we're not gonna solve it right here and right now. We're getting really close to the end of our time, unfortunately, because I feel like we got through this much of what we wanted to talk about. Before I open it up for any questions, I feel like you guys didn't disagree on anything yet.
We should. Let's try.
Should we find something real quick?
Maybe the questions are spot on, so we can't say no.
You moderated it yourself almost. Does anyone have a question in the audience?
I have a comment only about what Shereen said about the social media effect. It's developing for word of mouth. The word of mouth is the most effective tools to promote your books. This is the developing is social media. And about TikTok, they create amazing idea. It's a hashtag TikBook to promote the books. And they have a fantastic stand at the Agora. It's an amazing idea, and it's promote the book. It's very nice, yeah. Because you are following the cookie and kitchen, and you can follow hashtag TikBook. Thank you.
Yeah, I should follow the book talk instead of the animal talk, I think. Do you? Okay.
Hi, I have two questions. The first one is for both of you. Do you think that there's a possibility in the Arab world of streaming? Are people going to be reading on their phones, and how effective do you think that would be? Something like Scribd. And then for Shereen, I'd like to ask about children's books, because of the problematic with books not being fun enough or accessible enough. What are your thoughts on publishing in Amie, a dialect, versus Fusha?
I'll go directly to the dialect versus Fusha thing, because it's always a thing. Okay, the thing about the dialect is that even in Lebanon, if you're from Beirut, or if you're from the mountain, the words you use are totally different. It's so different everywhere that you can't really use it, because you're closing the market, and not everybody will understand. So it's something that we will not do because of the market issues, and because it changes also in every house. It depends where their descendants are. And as for streaming, I don't know if children would really want to read online. They do it for schoolwork now with all these apps that they have to read when they're home.
I don't know about children, but I know about adults. Yes, it's coming, and we have, as I mentioned, Abjad is a streaming service, and it helped also to diminish a little bit of the piracy that happens, because if I want a book and I really can't get it and it's there, people feel free to pirate, because I can't access the book and I really need it and I'm willing to pay. But it gave an alternative where you can pay. Also, with the prices of books rising now, and with the paper prices, it will gonna rise more. We expect more at the next book fair in Cairo. So I think paying, it's like a price of one book, or even now would be like the price of half of a book for a month subscription. That's a very good challenging point, and it made a lot of people I know even if they don't like the electronic reading, and then they are stuck in at a doctor and they had to open and start, oh, I read like 50 pages, and well, it's doable, especially with Kindle or these digital ink things, better than the phone. Smartphones are not the best, but I mean, when you really need, or you have a big book, that were the two reasons that people started to switch to streaming. So I think it's an opening thing, especially also that if you launch the book at the same time digitally with the physical or before, or it helps like people in the Gulf, they don't wait for all these logistics of postal, whether it will work or not. They can just download it. I was talking to someone in the States, and while we're talking, he said, okay, I have it, because he just pressed download. So.
It will take forever in Lebanon with the Wi-Fi. So.
Yeah, we have a couple more here.
Thank you so much. Very interesting conversation here. I have a very generic question related to how life is being transformed. Now we can see when it comes to media, for example, YouTube has replaced TV, and we can see the Netflix, and a lot of content are being there on the horizon. Same thing, we see radio probably one day is going to die, and then podcast is replacing that. Newspaper is dying or it's already dead. But then we can see how Twitter came in as probably a news provider, as being a very fast-paced movement. And we realize everything is becoming almost short format. You know, everyone is fighting TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. The shorter you go, the better it is. What I'm hearing here, we have a battle that has been, you know, going for ages now. How can we make books survive? Our children are not finding time. We are not finding time. We have books. We buy piles of books, but then we come and we see the consumption of content that we go through from the minute we wake up in the morning till we go to bed. It's huge. It's amazing. You know, it's something that we cannot resist, because it's also interesting. How do we, in your opinion, can fight this battle? You know, the battle of, yes, we still want to read, but then in terms of interest, we are being pulled towards, you know, all these different social platforms where basically you can get more with probably less time spent there. Thank you.
I would say don't fight it, play with it, because we are in the business of content. We're not in the business of books anymore. So if you have a good book, you can have it digitally, you can have it audio, you can have extracts of it, you can have people talking about it, you can have a summary of it, and whatever works. And as much as people, the attention span is very low now and very short, we have huge books and people love to read them, because in the middle of all this, when you have a vacation or you're on the beach, you want to really unplug and have, if it's a good book. So I think the whole concept is we're in the business of content that can be used, documentary, movie, whatever later. So if you have the good content, you can really transform it with all these things. So it will never die, the concept, the content itself. It will be transformed into a different media. And just find the right way. You can't speak to people the same way in the past. You have to have the proper channels, I think, for it.
If we go to children, it's much easier to give a child an iPad and just let them be. But do we want to miss the time before his bed when we sit down and we read a book, and then when we read to them and we talk to them, and then they talk back to us, and then they share what happened with us? Because if we go to bibliotherapy and we see how beautiful books can help us in understanding our children and getting in touch with them. So this is the part where we should work on more awareness campaigns with the parents. Just 10 minutes a day, just 5 minutes. We can start with 5 minutes before bedtime for their children. We're not asking for the whole day. And then once they sit down with them and then hug them and then do this, and then it becomes a habit. It's not only the mother, it can be the mother, the father, the siblings. Everybody is busy a lot of the times. But just this small time when you want to switch off, you don't want your children on the iPad, because definitely screens excite children before they sleep. And we want them just to relax, and like those mealtime when people are really supposed to put their phones away and then sit down and talk to each other. I hope we don't lose this, because it is becoming too much.
Well, obviously we have book lovers here. I think that's an excellent place to end. You guys both gave a very nice, impassioned speech. They've been predicting the end of books forever, and we're all still here. So
I would just want to say one last thing before we go,
Quick.
is that despite all these things, I see that we have the future. We have the 60% of the people under 30. We have a young generation. People are investing in education somehow, whatever it is, but they're really investing. And since we have content, we're not afraid of all these technological things, because content is king, and that's what people are looking for in all social media or all technology. So as long as we keep this, we are the next big thing, hopefully, in the publishing business even.
And I just have to say that when we look at publishing, let's not compare it to the foreign markets. It's totally different. Publishing and the industry should be looked at from a different perspective. And this is where we should start finding solutions for whatever problems we have.
well, there's a lot of potential in the Arab world, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what you all do to exploit that in the coming years. We unfortunately have to end. I know there were more questions in the audience, but we're running out of time. We have to give up the stage. I want to thank our supporter, the Sheikh Zayed Book Award, for making this possible and making the interpretation into Arabic possible. That's very generous and much appreciated. And thank you to Shereen and I'm so sorry. They're two alike. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you both for this fantastic discussion. I hope we get to do it again at another book fair.